Well, let's get going. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, and welcome to this edition of Rise and Ignite, where we'll be talking about data security posture management. I'm William Blackwell, a director at Insight Partners and former cybersecurity advisor. And today I'll be joined by Andy Smith, the CMO at Laminar, and John Raper, the CISO at Costco Wholesale. So Insight Partners are one of the leading software investors globally, with over 25 years of experience in software investing and around 750 investments across both industry tech verticals such as fintech, health tech, prop tech, and horizontals including IT infrastructure, digital experience, data and AI, and cybersecurity. And I'm part of the Ignite team at Insight, where our goal is to provide enterprise tech executives unparalleled access to next generation technology, innovative thinking, and a network of peers driving digital change. So today we're going to be talking about the topic of DSPM and how to manage data security initiatives, and how to better identify and protect data in the cloud. So data visibility and the management of the security of both structured and unstructured data has long been the cause of headaches for security teams. And the shift to cloud has really accelerated and accentuated this problem, as employees and customers are now able to access a rapidly expanding set of services, each with their own data structures and security controls. The data landscape for any organization is now decentralized and global. That said, the cloud with its modern architecture has also helped in the ability to get a better handle on what data is where, who has access, and how that data is being used. So the term data security posture management, DSPM, emerged last year following a data hype cycle report by Gartner, and offers a means to solve this important problem. But it's not always entirely clear what the term really means and how well DSPM solutions can protect your data compared to existing data security and DLP tools. So to talk about this subject in much more detail, I'd like to invite Andy Smith from Laminar to join me. So Andy is currently the CMO for Laminar, having previously spent over 30 years in the high-tech industry in and around Silicon Valley, the past 20 years of that focusing on security, and has had key roles at Qualys, Centrify, and Oracle. Andy is also a frequent speaker on technology and security at industry events around the globe. So I feel we're in good hands here. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you very much, William. Glad to be here. So thanks, everybody. Good to see you here to talk a little bit about data security posture management and kind of set the stage for what it is and why now. So I'm going to actually bring up some slideware here so I can walk you through this a little bit. So there's really two major mega market trends that are happening that cause the advent of the need for data security posture management. The first is cloud transformation that William mentioned. I feel like I've been talking about cloud transformation for 10 or 15 years, but it's really in the last 3 to 5 that it's really taken off and accelerated. And in fact, Gartner estimates it at $495 billion right now, growing 20 to 30%. And it's really in just the last couple of years. In fact, the pandemic accelerated the growth of cloud transformation by just over 5.3 years. And so really moving to the cloud fast now. The other major market trend that's going on is data democratization. So, because I have this ability to collect more data, use it for innovation, the amount of digital transformation that's going on, the amount of data that's available is just outstanding. You can see that it's estimated there'll be 175 zettabytes of data in the data sphere as of 2025. That growth curve, let me talk about it a little bit. In 2011, we were only talking about 1.8 zettabytes. By 2020, that had moved to 59 zettabytes. And then add 5 years onto that, you've gone from 59 to 175. So the acceleration of data and the vast majority of that all in the cloud is here. I love this other quote that 90% of all data today was created in the last 2 years. So that's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data per day. And so that's like, whoa, a mind-blowing stat. Well, the funny thing is, that's a quote from Domo from 2017. 6 years ago. And so like the acceleration is just incredible. So the amount of cloud transformation going on, more digital, more data used for amazing business purposes for innovation. But the rise of those two phenomena has created the perfect storm for data security teams. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So what's happened is this advent of cloud data activities. You're moving things much, much more faster in the cloud and much more dynamic, agile. And so those cloud activities are going really, really quick, but the data security agility has remained low, pretty static. I'm still doing manual checks about where my data is it following policy? And so you created this security execution gap between our capabilities to safeguard our data and the dynamic environment that data is in. And that phenomena, there's Jason. He's got this great killer idea that's going to destroy your career as if you're the security professional. Jason, they're doing wonderful things, right? With these data scientists, the DevOps engineers, the developers, all kinds of wonderful innovations going on, but it's creating risk. And so let me give you some examples. We've coined this term called shadow data. So it's data that exists in your cloud environment that you're really not aware of. It's never the production data store that is at risk. So everybody knows about that. It's secured well. It's the shadow copies of all that data if you create that shadow copy, that data proliferates and the security doesn't travel with it. And so these are all real customer examples of shadow data that you should recognize, right? So there, you may have data that was originally in Amazon in an S3, and you make a data dump, you put it into a developer for environment, so maybe there's a data scientist, they want to run a test, they make a copy of a production database, put it into the dev environment. It's supposed to only be there for 2 weeks while that test is going on, but of course they get distracted, move on to other things, and it's still there 2 years later. Super, super common. The other very common thing is that you might have a compute instance like Amazon EC2, and that's running an embedded database on there. So these are unlisted embedded data. So if you look at your Amazon instance, that looks like a compute instance. It doesn't look like a data store, but obviously it is. And so if you just use the normal tools that are available, you will miss that out on the fact that is actually a data store. We talked about, there's often unmanaged backups of RDS, an orphaned, somebody makes a backup and the original application goes away, but nobody wants to delete data. So you've still got this orphaned backup that's sitting out there. Abandoned databases, these are all real examples of shadow data. And so what we find, the security practitioner and security leaders, they know they've got this problem, but nobody quite knows how bad or doesn't really, I know I've got this problem, I just don't know how bad it is typically what we find. And at 100% of our POVs and prospects and customers, we have found examples of shadow data that were causing undue risk. And so that Jason that's doing those incredible things and all the good stuff that your developers and your data science is doing, we're coining this new term called the innovation attack surface. So it's the continuous unintentional risk that cloud data users create when using data to drive innovation. And so it's you think about the attackers of the past, the hacker in the hoodie who's going after. No, this is not this. This is a normal course of doing business, and stuff gets left behind, and it's so easy just to copy stuff from here to there. As that data proliferates, it's unintentional, but as that data grows, that risk grows with it. And so this new attack surface is due to the innovation. It's a very good thing. You do not want to slow down this innovation. You just want to put guardrails around it. This is part of the reason why data security posture managers exists today. So the problem is data security posture. And what we see is that as data proliferates and proliferation grows, security doesn't follow. So as I copy databases here and there and make backups, those original security controls for that main production database don't follow onto that new environment. Those will have to be reset. And therefore, as data grows, data the amount of data grows, so does data risk. And what we really need to do is decouple data risk from data growth. We want to continue to allow that data to grow because there's all this amazing innovation we're doing with it, but we want to decouple risk. And so we want to de-risk that environment. And that's why data security posture management. We need to make data security more agile to match the agility of what's happening in the cloud. And therefore, that's the advent of data security posture management. William mentioned that Gartner came out, it was August last year, that Gartner came out with a DSPM dot on the data security hype cycle. And if you read their definition, data security posture management provides visibility as to where sensitive data is, who has access to that data, and how it has been used, and what the security posture of that data store or application. They listed it as a transformational technology, just because this doesn't exist before, and they really can make an impact on allowing that innovation to continue to occur without the risk. When we talk about it at Laminar, we talk about 5 capabilities. So one, you first want global data visibility across all your multi-cloud environment, to have a dashboard that you understand where all of your sensitive data is. And just having that view, to find all that shadow data is the first step. And then you want to improve your data hygiene. We often go into our customers and they've got data stores that they don't need anymore, that are just sitting out there. Some of those orphan backups, something that hasn't been used in months or years. And so you can improve your data hygiene just by cleaning up the environment. And then it really is about that risk control, about understanding that data security posture. Is it encrypted, or is it following the retention period? And these are data security policies. It's really important to think about and understand that you have data security policies, and this is looking at who has access to the data element. These aren't infrastructure policies. This is all about data security. What's its retention period? Understanding what level of sensitivity it is, because your data security policy will differentiate depending on whether we're talking about PII, PCI, PHI. Those all have different requirements. Then there's data access governance. So making sure you're looking at that access, limiting access, so you don't have, it's not overly exposed. And lastly, of course, once you add security, that data security element that can be used in your compliance efforts, whether you're talking about privacy compliance or compliance with various governance frameworks. You focus on security first, and then you become compliant after that. And so this really can help evidence for your auditors to say, look, I know where my data is. I know how it's being protected. So let me just take you through a couple kinds of examples of these kinds of policies. So, one could be, we're looking at this shark fin on the left, sensitive file in a public asset. So there might be, what we're finding in a lot of our customers is there are public buckets. They're supposed to be public because they're hosting website data, for example, but somebody misplaced some data inside that public bucket that shouldn't have been there. And so we often find sensitive. In fact, there was our labs did a survey of open S3 buckets, publicly exposed S3 buckets, and found that 21% of those contain sensitive data. So it's developers kind of not trying to do something malicious, but needed somewhere to put something for a period of time, stuck it inside this S3 bucket without understanding that bucket was publicly exposed, using for a different purpose. So it happens quite often. Public access in a private bucket is another kind of example. So again, it's important to look at the data element, access to the data element. So we can find infrastructure, the bucket is locked down, but the data inside it is still publicly accessible. It's a different layer of access control. There's deleted data that isn't deleted, unmanaged orphan backups. These are all examples of policies that can be automated and continuously monitored for. And so what's new is agile data security and making those new solutions cloud native. And so the legacy data security was based on connectors. You had to put connectors onto each of these data assets. Obviously, that's labor intensive. It's a fight for resources, and it's blind to shadow data. I have to know where to put these connectors and make those connections. I have to know all that information. What's modern around data security is agile data security. Agile data security has to be cloud native. We utilize the cloud service provider's APIs rather than connectors. So it's agentless. It's asynchronous, so it's not in line. I'm not affecting the production data store at all. And it's completely autonomous. I don't have to know anything. I can find all that shadow data. I don't have to know the credentials for the data store. It all happens with zero knowledge from the data security professional or needed to go bother anybody else. So that's what data security posture management delivers, agile cloud native data security. So with that, thank you. Appreciate the time. If you want to learn more, you can go visit laminarsecurity.com. Really looking forward to the continued fireside chat and talking a little bit more about it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Super interesting. So we'd like to open up the conversation now and talk through some of the burning questions around DSPM, managing data security more broadly. And so for this, I'll invite John from Costco to join us. John is the CISO at Costco, brings over 15 years of security experience to the role. He's responsible for ensuring the global cybersecurity posture and protecting IT and information assets across the global business. He's previously served as Director of Security Incident Response at Walmart and was a Senior Director of Global Information Security at Oracle. And prior to all that, he served as a special agent in the US Secret Service. Interesting. So welcome, John.
Hey, thank you, William. Excited to be here.
Great to have you. And we've got a few questions on data security and DSPM in general. And then there's quite a few from the audience as well. So we'll try and get to those at the end. But I'll start with one of the major ones that we've seen from conversations around the topic. And this is for you, John, I think. So from your perspective as a CISO, what do you see as some of the key challenges relating to data security as a topic or domain? And how do you see DSPM solutions kind of meeting those requirements or those challenges?
There's several challenges that large enterprises face regarding data security. And, most enterprises are both, hybrid cloud and multi-cloud environments. The cloud's being leveraged to really modernize IT holistically and then put data in the hands of the consumer and then employees for actionable insights. And so in that environment, right, data flows freely between on-premise and multiple cloud environments. Data is shared with vendors and partners for critical business functions. And understanding who is accessing that data and how it's shared is critical for all security organizations. And these challenges are compounded when you add in the regulatory obligations for ensuring that data must reside in a certain geographic location and typically cannot leave with the region without express written consent. And DSPM helps companies remain secure and compliant by identifying where that sensitive data resides, determining how it's accessed and by whom. And lastly, DSPM really helps companies ensure that they're abiding by a global onslaught of privacy legislation, ensuring that they don't have any cross-border data transfer issues. So I'd say, it gives you the ability to identify it, put controls around it, understand what controls exist between the sensitive data and the attackers. And it also gives you that comfort of knowing who is accessing it and how.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Andy, do you want to add something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I look at, what's data security is not a new subject, right? But what's changed in the last few years, it's really about the pace, right? So the agility of the cloud environment, where a developer can, with 3 clicks can copy a data store, doesn't need to ask permission from anybody, right? So the pace of change, as well as the amount of technology that's available. Each cloud provider has dozens of different ways to store data. You go that across what John just said, you go across your on-prem environment, you've got 2 clouds at least, you're talking hundreds of different ways. And as a data security professional, I just care about my PII data. You're going to make me try to understand the 50 different data store technologies and how they need to be configured. That's really, really hard. So those are the 2 things that got harder. It got much more dynamic. And so I can't depend on manual anymore. I can't depend on interviews, which is the way it used to be done in the past. I have my data security policy and then I go talk to the developer. Oh, what data are you storing? How is it, how's it protected? You used to be able to do that manually. I mean, it was a lot of effort, but you used to be able to do it. In today's environment, it's wrong the day after you've had that interview, right? And then just the sprawl of tech, they got much more complex for a data security person. So those are all reasons why automation, data security posture management that can do some automation, that automatic verification, and that also takes some of that complexity off your hands, because they the software understands these data environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, you talked about the kind of flow of data sort of on-prem into the cloud, etc. I think one of the questions we have is, how do you see DSPM solutions fitting into the overall strategy for the security of data, across the enterprise? And also, how does it complement sort of DLP initiatives, and is it different in that sense?
So, I break data security down into a few buckets, right? You have the identification stage, you have classification stage, you have tagging, and you have segregation, right? So first I have to find it, then I have to tell you what it is, how sensitive is it. Then if it's critical or really sensitive, then I have to segregate it. Then I have to build controls around it. And all of these are really foundational capabilities within a data security program. And within minutes, DSPM provides visibility into the location of those sensitive data repositories, which I think differentiates it from your traditional DLP, whether you're looking scanning at REST utilities historically or data in motion utilities. Data sprawl is also a concern, right? Between development and testing and node prod implementations. DSPM gives us visibility into all of these, whether it's an orphan cloud system or dev test that was never decommissioned, or some type of issue where potentially sensitive data could be exposed. And ensuring the data can be identified wherever it resides is critical. It gives us insights into the location of that structured data. DSPM is also customizable to meet our classification guidelines. So what I deem highly critical today, such as pre-release financial data, tomorrow, if we release earnings, right, it's really public information. So the criticality of the data changes from day to day. Therefore, the controls I need to implement change day to day as well. So DSPM gives me that flexibility and that granularity to determine what should be public and what should be private. How does it differentiate from DLP controls today? I think, in terms of identifying data stores and determining what controls are between it and the internet, I think it's foundational. The API-driven capabilities that we're seeing across the board give you instant visibility versus your typical, I'm going to scan for data at rest and look with certain regex queries to identify a 9-digit number, for example. Right? Those older antiquated processes are gone. And now we can get actionable insights into immediate visibility across the board.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I think about how it fits into the overall program, I think about Gartner's adaptive security model and predict, prevent, right? That's the posture management aspect. And then it's detect and respond. And that's more what I think of traditional DLP. You're looking for, you might be looking for anomalistic behavior. You're looking for risk, or you're looking for something bad that happened, and you're trying to catch it as soon as possible, right? And remediate it. But it's necessary to have both, right? So you need those preventive controls and you need those detective controls. And so that's how DSPM folds in with DLP in my mind. But John, you're exactly right. I mean, the DLP nightmares of the past, right, was all about just regex and trying to do the important foundation of all of this is a discovery and classification aspect. That's the hardest part. Once you really have good discovery and classification, then the rest of this builds, both DSPM and DLP build off of that.
I think the criticality of the data, Andy, in my mind, is something that every team within security, privacy, and compliance can benefit from, right? Whether you're a SOC analyst and you see an alert that is targeting a system that you can identify houses critical data, or you're a privacy team working with legal to understand, where your sensitive data resides, right? There are so many use cases for it that, expedites your investigations. It ensures compliance. It gives you a leg up where historically it's been a challenge for larger enterprises to say, yes, I can definitively state where all of my sensitive data resides.
Yeah. Having an accurate inventory is hard.
Absolutely. And just moving on, I think one of the really important questions we have is around, there's almost like the cultural side of implementation. It's security is really as much a cultural thing as a technical challenge as well. And so I guess, question for you, John, perhaps, but how do you get buy-in from the business to bring them on the journey of better securing data? How do you sort of achieve that best?
So I've always felt that, no one knows the criticality of the data like the owner, right? So security practitioners have to work closely with the business to determine what data is most important to their specific company. And understanding the business use for that data is very critical. You know, how is the data shared? How is it accessed? Who needs to access it and from where? And, you know, when we're designing technical solutions, we have to go out and partner with the business and keep that end user in mind so that we're not building a fortress around something that needs to be shared, you know, publicly. And we must be, I'd say, very proactive in helping the business design this functionality and implement the solutions and work with them and partner with them throughout the testing phases. And when, you know, my personal approach is when I meet with the business, I try to focus on the value of the technology, not from a security or compliance standpoint, but does it provide time savings? Does it offer a potential cost savings? Does it offer analytics and insights? Or does it, you know, you also want to benefit and make note of the enhanced security and compliance requirements as well, privacy implications, you know, abiding by regulatory obligations. All those are, I think, components that add to helping tell the story. But start with what's most beneficial to the business and work your way out from there would be my advice. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that well articulated. You know, the interesting thing is I've been doing a lot of security products for many years, and this is one case where due to this innovation attack surface and this shadow data, you know, having better data hygiene can actually help the business and do, you know, can offset some of the costs of implementing the solution. Like you've got these data stores out there that may not be being utilized or don't really need to be there. So it's causing undue risk, but you're also paying to have that storage. So being able to save some money and then avoid all the manual efforts. I've talked to a lot of customers that they spend months preparing, you know, going around and interviewing to try to understand where their data is in a manual process leading up to an audit, as an example. And, you know, it's a terribly painstaking task, right? So bringing some automation to that, which is really necessary with the pace in the cloud environment. So that's how I see the kind of benefits that customers are seeing.
Yeah. I'm just going to move us on because there's quite a few Q&As from the audience. We kind of want to rattle through these, I think, in the minutes that we have left. One of them really interesting questions. So what additional benefits do I gain with DSPM if I'm already using CSPM, CNAP, etc.? Maybe a question for you, Andy.
Yeah, it's a focus on the data. So like a CSPM and a CNAP are focused on the infrastructure. They're about infrastructure security. So there's also, you're making sure things are following policy, but it's the infrastructure policy as opposed to the data policy. So we're looking at is it following the retention period? Is it encrypted? What's the access to the data element? Those are all non-infrastructure. Those are data specific things. And, you know, a perfect example was one I talked about earlier, is that there could be a publicly exposed S3 bucket that's supposed to be publicly exposed, but if you misplace data into that bucket, an infrastructure security solution will go, great, that's supposed to be publicly exposed. Ignore it next time around. That's what it's supposed to do. But somebody misplaced data in there. Unless you look at the data inside, you know, the infrastructure doesn't catch that problem. The data is exposed unintentionally, but you have to be discovering and classifying that data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is kind of related, but the next question is, well, there's two parts to it really. So how is DSPM viewed compared to CSPM in light of the potential convergence of technologies? And, you know, considering there are so many components, how are you addressing it so you can compete with best of breed products as well? Or would you see the Laminar solution as a best of breed in that case?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we view ourselves as clearly as best of breed data security. And it goes back to what John said earlier, when you're looking at these DSPM solutions, it's about data security, but it's about privacy, right? Once you understand where your data is and being able to, some of the policies we're looking at, there's exactly what he mentioned. Is European citizen data outside of Europe? You know, that's the kinds of privacy data security policies that a best of breed will do. So there's a great story combining, looking at CSPM, a better together story, CSPM with a DSPM, because if I've got whatever, 100 alerts, 100 high critical alerts, well, the ones I want to carry, the ones that have sensitive data at risk are the ones I want to take care of first. And so, maybe I can 17 of those or something that are the ones I want to take at first, because you want to do the ones that have the data, the sensitive data at risk. And so it's a nice combination between the two, but they are different. So, the DSPM is going to be serving the privacy use case, the governance use case, as well as that security use case.
Excellent. And just one question for John from the audience. So how does one launch a data protection function within decentralized complex organization? That's quite a big question, but John, I guess if you can sort of tackle that in sort of a minute.
Yeah, I would almost start with, establish a data security champion within each one of those organizations, right? Decentralized models can work well. I've worked in a number of them, but you have to have champions embedded within the teams to start. And I'd say go have those conversations with the business first. Hey, let's talk about the criticality of your data and the sensitivity around it, where it resides, the current controls that are in place, and then talk through your current capabilities, right? What do you have to offer them? Can you help them find it, detect it, put controls around it, understand who it's being shared with and how, and then establish that champion program, work directly with the business owners and the data owners to build that from the ground up. Have them report back to a centralized kind of governing body so that each one of those decentralized entities is approaching it in a consistent manner. So everything from a technological rule implementation to use case driven, detection and response and error should all be standardized in my mind. But you can really make a lot of progress in those decentralized models by embedding champions in the teams.
Yeah. And thank you, John. And final question for you, Andy, before we close, just very quickly. What do you think the evolution of DSPM is? Where is it going next?
I see these, that DSPM is the first place to start, but we already talked about kind of detection and response is the next thing, and then these become data management platforms in a sense as they grow. There's just lots of space for to continue to expand because this issue we talked about at this beginning, that's not, the environment's not going away. The need to decouple that risk, that data risk from data growth, there's a lot of aspects to do that. So DSPM is where to start with data security, but there's lots of additional layers, including all the compliance stuff on top of that.
Brilliant, really interesting. I think that's all we've got time for. So thank you everyone for joining today. And of course, Andy and John for sharing their thoughts on the topic. And we look forward to seeing you all again on the next Rise and Ignite. So thank you and goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.